Welcome to Candlewick Library. I'm Cheryl. A few days ago, I was sitting with my youngest daughter and talking about ideas for YouTube videos. And she said, why don't you make a video that is your top adaptations from books? And so that kind of snowballed into the idea of doing a few separate videos that each have to do with adaptations. Today, I'm going to talk about the adaptations that I actually like better than the book. That is the rare one. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And then I will get a little negative in the next video and talk about the adaptations that I hate. And then in the next video after that, I will talk about the adaptations that I love almost as much as the book. And then the fourth video will be the adaptations I wish would happen. So I'm going to get started with this first one. Adaptations that I like better than the book. We're pretty notorious as readers for saying the book is always better. And I think in most cases it is. So this list comes from two different kinds of scenarios. One is that I watch a show or a movie and then I've read the book and I'm disappointed because I don't like it as much as I liked the adaptation. Or there are the ones where I have already liked the book and then I see the adaptation and I still think that was a lot better. I was trying to stick to a top 10 for each of these different categories, but today I'm going to have 11. First, I'm going to start with a few Disney movies. One is Mary Poppins. I've been watching that movie since I was a child. It's not my favorite movie, but I enjoyed it and I enjoyed the Mary Poppins character. So a few years ago, I finally read it aloud to my daughters, and that was the first time I'd ever read it. And we were so surprised at how different it was and how Mary Poppins seemed kind of mean sometimes in the book. But I definitely love the movie Mary Poppins better than the book. Number two would be Mother Carey's Chickens. This one, my daughter disagrees with me. My oldest daughter likes the book better than the movie. While this is an example of a book that I actually really enjoyed, I still will always love Summer Magic more. This was one of my favorite Disney movies growing up, and I loved everything about it. And so since a lot of it has changed from the book, then it was kind of sad for me when those things weren't in the book. Number three would be Swiss Family Robinson. And this is again one that was one of my absolute favorite movies growing up, which is probably the reason that I love it more than the book. When I was a child, I wanted to be Francis. He was so cool. He got to play with so many animals. And when I was a kid, my ultimate dream would have been to have a zoo in my backyard. I even designed a boat, like a kind of like an ark, where I would have animals on it and it had all my living spaces, and it was going to have wheels so I could drive it around, and then it would go into the water so that I could float around too. I don't know if I still have that drawing, but I can see it completely clearly in my brain. And so watching Francis and how he was so obsessed with the elephant and monkey and getting the tiger, and I loved that. I wanted to be best friends with him, and then I wanted to live in that tree house. I loved how the roof went up in the room so they could look at the stars at night. You know, as a kid, I didn't think about, how hot it would be and the bugs and all of those different things. And I just loved it. And so when I read the book with my children for a read aloud a few years ago, I didn't hate the book. There were parts of it I really liked, but I found that I still loved the movie better than the book, and it was very different. My daughters didn't like the book, so that probably attributed to my feelings as well, but I really loved the movie better. I really love that movie. The next one that is a Disney would be Beauty and the Beast. And if you go to the original Beauty and the Beast fairy tale, I don't think Beauty and the Beast would be my favorite fairy tale or story just based on the original. I don't know that I'll ever know that because I never read it until after I had seen the Disney cartoon. When I saw Beauty and the Beast, I was already a teenager. I wasn't a little kid. I think I was in ninth grade. I saw it in the theater at least 3 times because I loved it so much. I loved the story. I loved the music. I loved everything about it. Her dress was yellow, my favorite color. And before that, my favorite animated Disney movie had been Fox and the Hound. And so this quickly became my favorite and kind of became part of my personality, I think. And it wasn't until just a few years ago that I read the original fairy tale for the first time, and I enjoyed it. But I'm not sure that I would enjoy it as much if I hadn't already completely loved the story of Beauty and the Beast from the Disney movie. And I like the remake too. That can be controversial sometimes. I hear a lot of people that love the animated version that don't like the newer version, but I actually did. I thought it was really well done too. And in fact, a few years before it was even a thing, when they started making the live action movies, I said that my dream casting of Belle would be Emma Watson. And so when they cast her, a lot of people talk about her not being the the greatest singer in the world, or that they didn't think she did a good job, but I think she did. Maybe that's another controversial opinion. I have enough of them. And then Dan Stevens is one of my favorites, and he was the Beast, and Emma Thompson is one of my favorites. I could go on and on about Beauty and the Beast. I love both of those movies, and I actually go back and forth between watching both of them. And so I would have to say I love them more than the original story. Number 5 is a little bit different because I have never finished the whole book. About 10 years ago, I had a friend that introduced me to the TV show Lark Rise to Candleford. I immediately loved it. I love the characters. I love the storylines. It's about a girl that lives in this small little hamlet of Lark Rise, and she goes to the bigger town of Candleford to help out at the post office. And so it tells the story of both towns and all the people in these villages. It's just a really good show. I introduced it to my parents, and they still watch it over and over again as well. We all love that show. And so I thought I would absolutely love the book. And I started reading it. I don't dislike it, but I found that I had a really hard time wanting to pick it up, wanting to go back to it. And I found myself just kind of getting bored and drifting off. So if you've read Lark Rise to Candleford and you've loved it, let me know that, because I still have it. And I've thought eventually I will go back and read the whole thing. The show, on the other hand, as soon as I started watching it, I just wanted to keep watching it. Number 6 is The Princess Bride. I grew up loving this movie, and in fact, I watched it with my family just a couple of weeks ago. I still love it. I have the book, and I'm not getting rid of it, but I read it for the first time about 6 years ago, and I was surprised at how much more I liked the movie. This is one of those cases where I've heard that the writer of the book also wrote the screenplay of the movie. I feel like that the movie just took what was in the book and just made it funnier, made the characters more likable, and overall just a better story. Number 7 is The Notebook. This was a movie that I loved when it first came out. I don't know if I would still love it as much as I did when it first came out. It was a movie that made me feel a lot of things when it first came out. And so it's been probably 15 years since I read the book. As soon as I found out it was a book, I read the book, and I was so disappointed. I didn't like it at all. So that one's an easy one for number 7. Number 8 is going to be another very controversial one probably on here, and that is the Lord of the Rings movies. Don't hate me. I do enjoy Tolkien and his writing. I do really enjoy the Lord of the Rings books, but I read them after seeing the movies. I don't think I'd even heard of Lord of the Rings before the movies came out, which sounds really weird for somebody who is a reader. But my introduction to C.S. Lewis and Tolkien was as a late teen and adult. I'd never read Narnia until I was an adult either. I was dating my husband when the movies came out, and he wanted to go to them, him and his friends. And so I thought, okay, well, sure, I'll go. And I went, and I loved the movies. I didn't read the books until I'd seen all of the movies. And so I had the movies in my head as I'm reading the books. You know, they move faster, and you see what's going on. I tried to read them aloud with my daughters this year. We started Fellowship of the Ring, and neither one of them were very into it. I think that might change as they get older. When I read the books, I thought, okay, I like these a lot, but I love the movies. There are a couple of characters in the movie that I loved more after reading the books, because he did go into more detail in the books, as they usually do. That happened with Faramir. I liked him in the movies, but I loved him in the books. So there definitely are things I like better about the books, but overall, I love the movies more. Number 9 is one of the easiest ones for me, and that is Austen Land. I enjoyed the book Austen Land, but I love the movie. This is one of those movies I never get sick of. And I know a lot of people who have watched the movie that don't think it's funny, my dad being one of them, but I think it's hilarious. I seriously never get sick of Austen Land. I watch it at least once a year. I know that Shannon Hale was very involved in the making of the movie. So was Stephanie Meyer, the woman that wrote Twilight. She was involved in the making of the movie as well. A couple of years ago, I watched a Zoom type interview with a bunch of the actors from the movie, and they just talked about how much fun this movie was to film and how they were all laughing all the time. So many of Jennifer Coolidge's lines in the movie were just ad-libbed and left in. Almost every character actually had some ad-libs in the movie. They all talked about this just being one of their favorite movie experiences because they all had so much fun, and I think that comes across when you're watching it. I think that movie was 10 times better than the book. Number 10 is Stardust, and this is another instance where I watched the movie first, and then read the book. And I think sometimes that does have an impact on whether you like the movie or the book better. It's been a while since I watched it, but when I watched it the first time, I just really loved it. It was adventurous and fun and interesting. And then I read the book and it fell really flat for me. I'm not a huge fan of Neil Gaiman's writing anyway, and I just felt like a lot of the magic from the movie was missing. And then number 11 is A Series of Unfortunate Events. I read the books and I did enjoy them, but I felt like the ending kind of fell flat a little bit for me. I watched the movie with Jim Carrey a long time ago when that first came out, and I liked it, but I'm talking about the TV series with Neil Patrick Harris. I thought that the TV show was so well done. We watched it as a whole family and we all really enjoyed it. Out of these 11 adaptations, there really were only a couple that I didn't like the books at all. But for the most part, I liked the books. I just loved the movies or the TV series more. So let me know if any of these drive you nuts, if you think I'm crazy about any of these 11, or if you agree on some of these, and if you have your own movies or TV shows that you think were better than the books.